Zachariah Davenport's hands trembled as she adjusted the faded woolen shawl around her shoulders, the early morning chill of Wyoming territory seeping into her bones as she stepped onto the dusty main street of Clearwater Springs. The year was 1878, and with each passing day, it became increasingly difficult to hide the growing life within her, a life that had cost her everything she once knew. The bustling frontier town was just awakening, shopkeepers sweeping wooden porches and freight wagons rumbling past laden with supplies. Zachariah kept her eyes downcast, one hand protectively cradling her belly beneath the concealing folds of her shawl. 6 months along now, she'd managed to journey west from Boston after her family had discovered her condition and cast her out, declaring her dead to them rather than bear the shame of an unwed daughter with child. The journey had depleted nearly every cent she possessed. Now, with only $3 to her name and nowhere to go, Zachariah found herself at the mercy of a town full of strangers. Her once fine traveling dress was dusty and worn, her boots scuffed beyond recognition. Yet she carried herself with a quiet dignity born of desperation and the fierce desire to protect the innocent life she carried. "Miss? You look like you could use some breakfast," came a deep voice from behind her. Zachariah startled, turning to face a tall man with sun-weathered skin and kind hazel eyes. He wore dusty trail clothes, a worn leather vest, and a wide-brimmed hat pushed back on his head. His face was partially obscured by a neatly trimmed beard flecked with auburn, matching his hair. "I don't accept charity," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper, yet carrying a stubborn pride that 6 months of hardship hadn't erased. The man's eyes crinkled at the corners. "Then consider it a loan. I'm Archer Quinn, foreman at the Silver Creek Ranch outside town. And you look like you're about to fall over." Zachariah hesitated, her hand unconsciously tightening around her shawl. "Zachariah Davenport," she finally offered. "And I can pay my own way, Mr. Quinn. I just need to find work first." Archer raised an eyebrow. "Pleased to meet you, Miss Davenport. Work's not easy to come by for a woman in your condition." Her face paled. "I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered, taking a step backward. His expression softened. "Madam, I grew up with 4 sisters and helped birth more calves and foals than I can count. I'm not judging you, but pretending won't make your situation any easier." Tears threatened, but Zachariah blinked them away. She'd cried enough already. "What would you know about my situation, Mr. Quinn? I know that everyone deserves kindness," he said simply. "Now breakfast first, then we can talk about what comes next." Against her better judgment, Zachariah followed him to a small cafe on the corner. The aroma of fresh biscuits and coffee made her realize how hungry she truly was. Archer guided her to a table in the back, away from curious eyes. After ordering food for them both, he leaned forward. "My sister runs a boarding house just outside town. She could use an extra pair of hands, and she's not one to pry into personal matters." "Why are you helping me?" Zachariah asked, suspicion edging her voice. Men's kindness had proven dangerous before. "Because 20 years ago, my mother arrived in this very town, carrying my youngest sister and with nowhere to go after my father was killed by raiders," he answered, his gaze steady. "Someone helped her. I'm just passing that kindness along." The waitress arrived with plates of eggs, bacon, and biscuits dripping with honey butter. Zachariah tried to eat slowly, but hunger got the better of her propriety. "When's the last time you had a proper meal?" Archer asked quietly. She paused, embarrassed. 2 days ago. I've been conserving my resources." "Starving yourself and your baby isn't conserving, it's foolish," he said, but his tone held no judgment. "Finish your breakfast. I'll take you to meet my sister afterward." An hour later they were in Archer's wagon heading 3 miles out of town. Zachariah sat stiffly beside him, her shawl wrapped tightly around her despite the warming day. "You don't have to tell me your story," Archer said, breaking the silence. "But if you want to talk, I'm told I'm a decent listener." Zachariah studied his profile, the strong jaw and straight nose. There was something reassuring about his presence, a steadiness she hadn't encountered in a long time. I was engaged, she finally said, her voice barely audible over the wagon's creaking wheels. He was from a good Boston family. When I told him about the baby, She swallowed hard. He said it wasn't his, that I must have been with someone else. He broke the engagement and told everyone terrible lies. My parents believed him over me. Archer's hands tightened on the reins. Sounds like Boston's idea of a good family differs significantly from mine. I couldn't stay, she continued. Not with the whispers, the way people looked at me. I used my dowry money to come west. I thought I could start fresh where no one knew me. And you can, Archer said firmly. The West forgives a lot, Miss Davenport. Out here, it's what you do that matters, not what's been done to you. The wagon crested a small hill, revealing a large 2-story house nestled in a grove of cottonwood trees. A wooden sign swung from the porch. Quinn Boarding House. My sister Eliza runs the place, Archer explained as he helped Zachariah down from the wagon. She's opinionated and blunt, but she's got the biggest heart in Wyoming territory. Eliza Quinn proved to be exactly as described, a sturdy woman with Archer's same hazel eyes and direct manner. She assessed Zachariah with one sweeping glance. How far along? She asked without preamble. 6 months, Zachariah admitted, no longer trying to hide behind her shawl. Eliza nodded. Well, you can help with cooking and cleaning until you get too unwieldy. After that, bookkeeping and mending. Room and board plus $2 a week. There's a small cabin out back. You can have more privacy than the main house. Thank you, Zachariah said, overwhelmed by the straightforward offer. Don't thank me yet. I work my help hard, Eliza warned, but her eyes were kind. Archer, show her the cabin while I finish lunch preparations. The cabin was small but clean, with a bed, table, chair, and small stove. A pitcher and basin sat on a stand beneath a small mirror. It's not much, Archer said, standing awkwardly in the doorway. It's perfect, Zachariah whispered, running her hand over the quilt on the bed. After months of uncertainty, the simple room felt like a palace. I'll bring your trunk, he said, turning to leave. Mr. Quinn, she called after him. When he paused, she continued, I don't know how to thank you. He smiled, the first full smile she'd seen from him. You can start by calling me Archer. Over the following weeks, Zachariah settled into life at the boarding house. The work was hard but satisfying, and Eliza proved to be a fair employer and gradually a friend. The boarders were mostly ranch hands and miners who paid little attention to Zachariah's condition, too tired from their day's labor to concern themselves with gossip. Archer visited regularly, bringing supplies from town or helping with repairs around the property. Zachariah found herself looking forward to his visits, watching from the kitchen window as his wagon appeared on the horizon. One evening in early autumn, as she sat on the porch shelling peas, Archer joined her, taking up a bowl to help. You've put on some weight, he observed. It suits you. Zachariah smiled, no longer self-conscious about her expanding waistline. Your sister ensures I eat enough for 3 people. Eliza says you're the best help she's had in years, he told her. The boarders have commented on how much better the meals are since you arrived. I enjoy the cooking, she admitted. My mother would be scandalized to see me doing kitchen work. She hired 3 servants just to prepare meals. And yet here you are, making the best biscuits west of the Mississippi, Archer teased. Their hands brushed as they reached for the pea bowls simultaneously. Zachariah felt a flush rise to her cheeks and quickly withdrew her hand. Sorry, Archer murmured, though he didn't look particularly apologetic. Mr. Quinn Archer, Zachariah began hesitantly. I've been wondering why you spend so much time here. Surely a ranch foreman has more important duties. He set the bowl aside, meeting her eyes directly. The ranch owner's son has been taking on more responsibility. He'll be made foreman next spring. Oh, she said, surprised. I'm sorry. Don't be. I've been saving for years. I've purchased a small spread about 10 miles from here. Good water, decent grazing land. Your own ranch, Zachariah said, genuinely happy for him. That's wonderful. It needs work, he admitted. The cabin's solid but basic. The corral needs rebuilding, and I've only got a small herd to start 20 head of cattle and a few horses. Still, it's yours, she said. That must feel incredible. It does, he agreed. Though it's a lot of space for one person. The implication hung in the air between them, unspoken but palpable. Zachariah looked away, her hand instinctively covering her belly where the baby had just kicked. Is the little one active today? Archer asked, changing the subject. Very. Especially when I'm trying to sleep, she said with a small laugh. May I? He asked, gesturing toward her belly. Surprised by the request, Zachariah nodded. Archer gently placed his calloused hand on the curve of her stomach. When the baby kicked against his palm, his face transformed with wonder. Strong, he murmured. Like its mother. Their eyes met, and something shifted between them, something Zachariah wasn't ready to name. I should finish these peas before dinner, she said quickly, pulling away. Archer nodded, understanding in his eyes. I'll be by next week with some lumber to fix the porch steps. As autumn deepened into winter, Zachariah's time grew closer. Her 7th month passed, then her 8th. Eliza insisted she take on lighter duties, focusing on mending and accounts rather than cooking and cleaning. The small cabin became a sanctuary, decorated with wildflowers Archer brought on his visits, and quilts Eliza lent her to keep warm against the Wyoming chill. On a snowy December evening, Zachariah was startled by a knock at her door. Opening it revealed Archer, snowflakes melting in his hair and beard, holding a wooden cradle. May I come in? He asked, stamping snow from his boots. Zachariah stepped aside, her eyes fixed on the beautifully crafted piece of furniture. What's this? Every baby needs a proper place to sleep, he said, setting the cradle down near her bed. I've been working on it evenings. Zachariah ran her fingers over the smooth wood, tracing the intricate carvings of leaves and stars along the edges. It's beautiful, she whispered, tears springing to her eyes. I'm glad you like it, Archer said, looking pleased but embarrassed by her reaction. I thought you might need some other things too. From his saddlebags he produced a package wrapped in brown paper. Inside, Zachariah found soft flannel blankets, tiny knitted garments, and a small silver rattle. Archer, this is too much, she protested. The blankets and clothes were my niece's. Eliza's girl outgrew them years ago, he explained. The rattle was mine, actually. My mother saved it. Zachariah clutched the tiny clothes to her chest, overwhelmed by his thoughtfulness. Why are you doing all this for me? Archer removed his hat, turning it in his hands nervously. Because I care what happens to you, Zachariah. To both of you. You barely know me, she said, even as her heart raced at his words. I know enough, he replied simply. I know you're brave and proud and stronger than you believe. I know you work hard and never complain, even when your back aches so badly you can hardly stand straight. I know you sing to your baby when you think no one's listening. Zachariah blushed. You've heard that? Through the window, sometimes, he admitted. You have a beautiful voice. The intimacy of the moment was broken by a sharp knock. Eliza entered without waiting for a response, carrying a tray with 2 mugs of steaming cider. Thought you might need warming up, she said, eyeing them both with a knowing look. It's getting worse out there, Archer. You should stay in the main house tonight instead of riding back to your place. After Eliza left, they sat in comfortable silence, sipping their cider and watching snow fall past the window. Zachariah felt a strange peace settle over her, a feeling she hadn't experienced since before her world had fallen apart. Tell me about your ranch, she said. What are you going to call it? Archer's face lit up as he described his plans, the herd he hoped to build, the crops he wanted to plant, the orchard he dreamed of establishing. As for a name, he mused, I've been thinking about New Beginning Ranch. Too sentimental? No, Zachariah said softly. I think it's perfect. January brought bitter cold and heavy snow. Zachariah, now in her final month, found movement increasingly difficult. Archer came more frequently, often staying overnight at the boarding house rather than risking the journey back to his ranch in treacherous weather. On a particularly cold evening, he brought a chess set to Zachariah's cabin, teaching her the game as they sat by her stove. Checkmate, she announced triumphantly after her third lesson. Archer laughed, shaking his head in disbelief. You're a natural. I've been playing for years and never saw that coming. My father always said I had a strategic mind, she said, then fell silent, memories of her family bringing a familiar ache. Do you miss them? Archer asked gently. Yes, she admitted. Even after what they did. They're still my family. Have you written to them? Zachariah shook her head. They made it clear they wanted nothing more to do with me. My mother returned my last letter unopened. I'm sorry, Archer said, reaching across the table to cover her hand with his. Family should stand by you, no matter what. Like you and Eliza, Zachariah observed. We've had our disagreements, he said with a wry smile. But yes, we've always known we could count on each other. His hand remained on hers, warm and reassuring. Zachariah didn't pull away. Zachariah, he began hesitantly. I've been meaning to ask you something. Before he could continue, Zachariah gasped, clutching her belly as a sharp pain rippled through her. What's wrong? Archer asked, immediately at her side. I think the baby's coming, she managed, her face pale with surprise and fear. Archer helped her to the bed, his movements calm despite the concern in his eyes. I'll get Eliza and send for the doctor. The next hours passed in a blur of pain for Zachariah. The doctor was delayed by the snow, leaving Eliza to manage the birth with Archer's assistance. Through it all, Archer remained by Zachariah's side, holding her hand, wiping her brow, and murmuring encouragement. You're doing wonderfully, he told her as another contraction racked her body. Just breathe, like Eliza showed you. I can't, Zachariah cried, tears streaming down her face. It hurts too much. You can't, Archer insisted, his voice firm but gentle. You're the strongest woman I know, Zachariah Davenport. This baby is lucky to have you for a mother. His words gave her strength. When Eliza announced it was time to push, Zachariah gathered her remaining energy and bore down with all her might. The cabin filled with the lusty cries of a newborn just as dawn broke on a crisp January morning. A girl, Eliza announced, cleaning and wrapping the infant before placing her in Zachariah's arms. Zachariah stared in wonder at the tiny face, perfect features, and shock of dark hair. The following weeks were a haze of exhaustion and joy for Zachariah. Hope proved to be a healthy but demanding infant, requiring frequent feedings and constant attention. Eliza adjusted Zachariah's duties, allowing her to work from her cabin while caring for the baby. Archer continued his visits, often bringing supplies or small gifts for Hope. He became a constant presence in their lives, rocking the baby when Zachariah needed rest, or taking over household chores without being asked. One evening in March, as the first signs of spring softened the Wyoming landscape, Archer arrived with a letter in hand. This came for you at the general store, he said, passing it to Zachariah. She recognized her mother's handwriting immediately and sank into a chair, the letter trembling in her fingers. Do you want me to leave? Archer asked. Zachariah shook her head. Stay. Please. With Archer standing supportively behind her chair and Hope sleeping in her cradle, Zachariah opened the letter. My dearest daughter, she read aloud, her voice shaking. I pray this finds you well. Your father does not know I am writing. He remains firm in his position, but I cannot bear the silence any longer. I think of you constantly and pray for your safety. If you can find it in your heart to respond with news of yourself and my grandchild, it would ease this mother's broken heart. With enduring love, Mother. Tears streamed down Zachariah's face. She doesn't hate me, she whispered. Archer knelt beside her chair, taking her hands in his. Of course she doesn't. She's your mother. What should I do? Zachariah asked, looking into his steady eyes. What does your heart tell you? That life is too short for pride, she answered. That Hope deserves to know her grandmother, even if only through letters. Archer nodded. Then write back. Tell her about Hope, about your life here. About you? Zachariah asked softly. His expression grew serious. Zachariah, there's something I've been wanting to say for months now. Hope chose that moment to awaken with a cry. Zachariah rose to tend to her, lifting the infant and cradling her close. She's hungry, Zachariah explained. Could we talk later? Archer nodded, disappointment flashing briefly across his face. I'll come by tomorrow. But the next day brought unexpected news. Outlaws had raided a nearby ranch, and all available men were being assembled to track them. Archer left a note expressing regret that he couldn't visit as planned. 3 days passed with no word. Zachariah found herself watching the road anxiously, starting at every sound. On the 4th day, just as twilight deepened, she heard hoofbeats approaching her cabin. Archer dismounted slowly, and even in the fading light, Zachariah could see he was injured. His left arm was bandaged, and he moved with careful precision. What happened? She cried, rushing to help him inside. We caught up to the raiders, he explained as she eased him into a chair. There was a fight. I took a bullet, but it's just a graze. The doctor already patched me up. Zachariah's hands shook as she poured him a cup of water. You could have been killed. But I wasn't, he said simply. And we recovered most of the stolen livestock and goods. Hope gurgled from her cradle, drawing Archer's attention. His face softened as he looked at the baby. She's grown just in these few days. She changes every day, Zachariah agreed. I'm keeping a journal so she'll know what she was like as an infant. Archer nodded approvingly. That's a fine idea. A comfortable silence fell between them. Zachariah busied herself making tea, trying to calm her racing heart. The fear she'd felt upon seeing Archer wounded had clarified something she'd been trying to deny for months. You were going to tell me something, she said finally, setting a cup of tea before him. Before you left. Archer took a deep breath, wincing slightly as the movement pulled at his injured arm. Yes, I was. Zachariah, these past months getting to know you have been the most meaningful of my life. I never expected to find someone like you, someone so brave, so determined, so full of grace even in the hardest circumstances. He paused, as if gathering courage. I've fallen in love with you. With both of you, really. I know Hope isn't mine by blood, but I've come to love her as if she were. I want to be a father to her, a husband to you if you'll have me. Zachariah stared at him, her heart pounding. Archer, you don't have to do this. We don't need your charity or your protection. This isn't about charity, he said firmly. It's about love, plain and simple. I love you, Zachariah Davenport. I love your strength, your kindness, your stubborn pride. I love the way you sing to Hope when you think no one's listening. I love how you never gave up, even when the whole world seemed against you. He stood, crossing to where she remained frozen by the stove. Gently, he took her hands in his. I'm not asking to rescue you. I'm asking for the privilege of building a life with you, both of you. Tears filled Zachariah's eyes. I'm afraid, she whispered. Of what? Of trusting again. Of believing in promises. The last man who claimed to love me abandoned me the moment I told him about the baby. I'm not him, Archer said simply. And I'm not asking you to just take my word for it. I've shown you who I am these past months. I'll keep showing you, every day, for the rest of our lives if you'll let me. Hope began to fuss in her cradle. Archer released Zachariah's hands so she could tend to her daughter. As Zachariah lifted the baby, Archer stepped closer, his hand gently touching the shawl that had slipped from her shoulder, revealing the curve of her postpartum belly. You're carrying a future worth loving, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Both in your arms and in your heart. Let me be part of that future, Zachariah. Let me love you both as you deserve to be loved. Zachariah looked down at Hope, then back at Archer. In his eyes she saw everything she'd ever wanted: respect, understanding, and a love that asked for nothing but the chance to be given in return. Yes, she said, her voice stronger than she expected. Yes, I'll marry you, Archer Quinn. They were married in April, with Eliza standing as witness and Hope cradled in Zachariah's arms. The ceremony was simple, held in the town's small church with a handful of guest boarders who had become friends, a few of Archer's ranch hands, and the doctor who had finally arrived to check on mother and child after the birth. Afterward, Archer drove them to his ranch, their ranch now. Zachariah gasped as they crested the final hill. The cabin had been expanded, a fresh coat of whitewash gleaming in the spring sunshine. A kitchen garden was already planted, and a rocking chair sat on the newly built porch. Welcome home, Archer said, helping her down from the wagon with Hope securely in her arms. It's perfect, Zachariah breathed, taking in the sweeping views of rolling hills and the distant mountains. Not quite perfect yet, Archer said, smiling. But it will be, now that you're both here. That night, after Hope was settled in her cradle in the small room Archer had built especially for her, husband and wife stood on their porch watching the stars emerge. I wrote to my mother, Zachariah said, leaning against Archer's solid warmth. I told her about Hope, about you, about our wedding. I invited her to visit whenever she's ready. Do you think she will? Zachariah smiled. Yes. Maybe not right away, but someday. And when she does, she'll see that I've found happiness she never imagined possible for me. Archer wrapped his arms around her, drawing her close. We've both found that, he murmured against her hair. Inside, Hope made a small noise in her sleep. Zachariah turned in Archer's embrace, looking up at the man who had seen her at her most vulnerable and offered not pity but partnership. I love you, she said, the words coming easily now. Thank you for showing me what love truly means. I love you too, he replied, his voice husky with emotion. Thank you for trusting me with your heart, and with Hope's future. As they sealed their vows with a kiss, Zachariah knew that the shawl she had once used to hide her shame now served only to ward off the evening chill. She no longer needed to hide anything, not her past, not her present, and certainly not the future she and Archer would build together, with Hope as its beautiful beginning.